You're like a man smoking at a gas station. You about to blow up. Footnote Martin, if you know, you know. Someone, maybe you, has evolved, grown up, improved their life in every way, shape, and form, or in some way, shape, and form, in such a remarkable sense that it has people wanting to know your strategy, your secrets. Some want to know, of course, for quite innocent or noble reasons, maybe curiosity, just to put it plainly. Some want to know so they can apply it for themselves and hope to have some type of similar outcome or result. And then there, of course, are those that just want to know because they either want to hack what you've created in some shortcut fashion for themselves in a way that isn't justifiably transferable. And worst case scenario, they may want to know so they can put an end to your evolution of sorts for you, or again to just seize it for themselves, to seize whatever they deem to be a practice that's transferable for themselves, to cut corners and again shortcut to a similar, if not even better, result. And really, the latter is not the focus at this time because that energy will always be there. The centric focus is really on you, and you being so fantastically changed, in ways that maybe either you presented yourself before or people misunderstood you to be before. Maybe it's in the way that you look. It could be mentally, it could be spiritually, it could be physically, it could be, again, just the overall quality of your life that has changed so drastically or so significantly, at least, that it's noteworthy. It's remarkable, again, is the word that sticks out the most. So to the point of remarkable, you might have people talking. You might have people, again, speaking about you in ways that are favorable and celebratory. And then, of course, you might have people questioning or challenging who you present yourself to be or who they perceive you to be, and whether or not it's real, or how did you do it, or was it done righteously or justifiably or honorably or whatever. And then, of course, there are the others that want to hurl false narratives upon that personal presentation to present a contrary point of view or some contrary concept of your presentation, versus what they would like to be the perception or believed, the perspective or believed perception of you. Again, of course, it's not about the latter. It never really truly is. But what I was seeing in the pre-shuffle is that there needs to really be a sense of, what's the right word? Comfort and security, personal security, with protecting those trade secrets of yours, like any good branded entity would, where it is that you find you could add value to sharing your point of view, your perspective, your strategy, your way of life with others. Certainly go ahead and do so with joy, with pleasure, and with no attachment to the response. But there's also a word of caution for saying too much, and particularly to the wrong audience. Because as I outlined in every scenario we're talking about here, there's always going to be that ladder energy that's not looking to do anything productive or positive with the information you may impart. And of course, you can't police that. You certainly cannot. You can't be attached, and at the very least, to what people will do with what you share, even when you're just giving your personal testimony. No particular blueprint for life, but just sharing your perspective and ideals about life. You really can't control how people will receive it, reject it, twist it, um, exploit it. You really, really can't. The best you can do is to protect yourself by way of the integrity of your intention to begin with. So that discernment starts within, where there are moments when there is a bit of a reluctance to share certain things with certain people, and the only thing that you owe to yourself is to follow that inkling. And there are times, when you actually may be urged to share some intimate aspect of yourself, or maybe from a vulnerable place, but there's the fear of how you'll be judged or condemned, criticized, even rejected or received. You never know. And in those cases, sometimes I feel, in the most egotistical way, that's a note to self, of either where there's still some opportunity and invitation for release, perhaps of some spirit of guilt or shame or insecurity. Because in those times where it's you holding you back, be out of fear for how you may be affected on account of just sharing honestly, those are the moments where you might actually leave some room to something to be desired for those, especially when those that are in alignment to receive righteously may be disenfranchised. So the point of the matter is that you have a secret sauce. We all do in some way, shape, or form. Whether we've tapped into it, whether we've curated it, cultivated it, worked it out. Some are ready to share it with the world. Some are a bit more protective, and you may be well within your rights to feel all of those feelings, and be as apprehensive or reluctant as you feel to be at times, and also to be as liberal as you naturally may want to be at times. Just know that what you have to share, and how it's perceived or received or not. But let me back up. How it is, what you have to share and how it's perceived or received or not, maybe even rejected, is not the value of the thing, i.e., the value of you. The value is really in your discernment to know when and where and how to express that vitality in a way that gives life and is forwarding in the most productive sense, where the information or the revelation or whatever, the example, the testimony, can be shared with very little attachment whatsoever, and trusted to take on a life of its own by God and by the divine in the most prosperous way it possibly can. So there's that. Let me see, there was some more to that. Let me see. I think let's see. Let me just pull these cards a little bit because I felt like I was guided today to just share what the pre-shuffle message was and then come back. And I think I am going to hold to that, but let's just see what comes up when I split this deck. Wow, the Wheel of Fortune and the Fool. Yeah, this is you're embarking on a whole new journey of a fate and fortune that has been destined to you for God knows how long. Only heaven knows, really and truly, you know. But what is manifesting of you and of the path that you are embarking on is so pivotal and so significant that it really can't be contained, you know, honestly, not successfully. You know, it's a type of expression of life that, you know, it literally is what I was saying, like something looking different on you, going from a novice of sorts to some accelerated advancement that is not only perceivable on sight, perhaps. So you might literally be going through some type of physical or aesthetic changes that the world can't help but notice, or the public, you know, that you are exposed to can't help but notice. But there's also, it's something much deeper than that, I feel. You know, the aesthetics are just the surface. It's something far deeper, internal, that has changed about you, your way of living, your ideals about life, your practices, your beliefs, the things that you do in alignment with all of those things are are on display, and if they're not already, they will be in some significant way. I mean, it really could even be just a matter of strangers taking being drawn to your aura, you know, and they don't know why because they don't know you, but you may be someone that's used to kind of going about life incognito, or knowing how to kind of cloak yourself or fall into the shadows or under the radar. You're not really one that's necessarily that you don't consider yourself to be like a noticeable energy, or someone that, you know, draws a lot of attention, and maybe you even prefer it that way. And maybe that's why this is the message as it is to start, is because there's about to be a significant change where not only will things be different for you in the way that you are used to life being. Again, the idea of being a bit secretive or under the radar, now suddenly being a hot commodity or on display in some way, shape, or form, you know, or at least in a way that you haven't been before. There's that to adjust to. And then there's the more assertive energy toward this remarkable change, where people are going to want to know how did it happen? What'd you do? How did you achieve that? Where did you go? What's the secret? What's the process? And the other thing that I was seeing in the cards in the pre-shuffle was that what works for you may not work for everybody. So again, you could share your testimony as liberally as you desire to. But the fact of the matter is, no one is anyone's blueprint, word for word and diagram for diagram. So whatever achievement you've come to can only be expressed by way of personal experience, but definitely not projected as an ultimate truth, you know, or the way of all ways. And then there's the other aspect of that I saw, where which is the real cause for discernment and consideration. Maybe not to feel like you got to be hyper vigilant or about, oh, I should share with this person but not with this person, or this doesn't, because like I said, there could be a mix in there between you just getting comfortable with being a source of um information, or a source of what's the right word, a resource in general, even if it's just a spectacle of a resource. That could be different for you. And so there could, as I said before, there could be the fact that you're just getting used to and adjusted to this new role in life, or this new experience of life where people actually notice you, and let alone want to connect with you in a particular way. So we never know. Sometimes it might get muddled until you really kind of get your bearings straight as to whether or not it's you that's holding you back, or there really is some type of alert or alarm as to whether or not you should be more conservative about your experience or about what you express. And that's why I said you kind of leave it up to the divine to disseminate through your best intentions, when you're literally just honoring where how you're feeling and what you're sensing in the moment, and hoping that the divine will intervene in any way that you may be falling short or giving too much. The integrity piece is just staying in tune and connected to those nudges of alignment when you feel them and when you hear them, and being as responsive as you possibly can, again, with with devotion to the integrity of it all, and staying open to, again, the fact that it could be a little bit of everything going on internally. But generally speaking, you'll find your footing eventually. It's your fate to do so, because whatever this this role or this space, that you may be taking up, perhaps in a new way or in an old way that you've just reconnected to. I'm not sure with the Wheel of Fortune here, because it's given that it could be something quite ancient and faded, prophetic even, but it's just you now coming into your alignment and acceptance and assertion, or assertiveness, whatever, of this identity, so to speak. But yeah, I think I kind of got off track from what I was saying in regards to some folks will, undoubtedly want to just extract as much information from you so that they can turn it over in a way that is suitable for them, but sometimes not in the most righteous sense. Again, to exploit that information. And as I said, you can't police that, but you can do your best to where you can, like where you have control, which is ultimately on what you share or what you say or what you do in the first place. Because ultimately, as the Wheel of Fortune is, it'll all come out in the wash. If someone is, like, small primitive example, at any given time, especially if you live in the city like I do, you could be approached by someone that needs money. They're asking for money, they're asking for something, usually money though. And on site, 9 times out of 10, whatever it is that they're saying that they're honestly asking for, usually food or something like that, it may not be what it's for. Now, sometimes, personally speaking, if I feel like it's a no, then it's a no, and I don't feel any guilt or shame about that. Like if I feel a strong sense that It's a no, I don't have it right now, or I'm sorry, not today, or whatever the case may be. I roll with that off the top, and I don't allow any guilt to settle in, because there could be a reason why that's my feeling for the day. Or maybe it is that I really just don't have it on me. That could be it too. But either way, I don't allow myself to be guilted into what I can do and what I'm able or willing to do, because I trust myself enough at this point to know that the core of my nature is to be benevolent, to be charitable, and to share. So when I have it, I give it. When I feel incited to give, I do without a second thought, and usually more than what was asked for. And with that, I still maintain a spirit of detachment regarding what the person is going to do with it, whether they're going to go buy themselves something to eat or buy themselves a hit, you know what I mean, or a drink or whatever, because it's not really my business or on me to police what's done with the charity that I offer or what I feel guided to share. And of course, I'm speaking about that in a material sense, but spiritually, energetically, informationally, time, and all of that stuff, matters. And what I'm saying, that if you're going to do it, then you do it with no attachment, with discernment, but no attachment with what happens after. You leave that to the divine. And in those moments where you feel like, nah, I don't feel right, or nah, I'm not into it, or I don't want to do that today, or it doesn't feel good to me, it doesn't feel natural, then you go with that too. And again, with the Fool card, that may take some getting used to, because the Fool is the very first point of identity. It's the first card in the deck, so it's the first presentation of self in what is a new cycle or a new experience of life, perhaps in a new position, or stepping out, making a public proclamation of who you've been, perhaps behind the scenes all along, all of that, but having not been noticed or seen before. It has a different resonance when now you feel a little bit exposed or vulnerable or on display. It's like all the things that you've been cultivating behind the veil, behind the scenes, in your own space and solitude, on your own, when nobody was watching, are exactly the reasons why you've been chosen, ordained, or you are being ushered into this new experience and new expression. And as long as you're leaning into the experiences and practices that were cultivated before it was anybody's business, you should more or less be what you'll find your sense of security now that maybe perhaps it is somebody's, if not everybody's, or at least people think it's theirs. Because there's a certain, now that I'm speaking on it, like there's a certain sense of entitlement that people can feel, especially when they get the sense that you are a resource of some kind. And this could even be like being on a social platform or a media platform of sorts, where you've turned on the courage to express yourself in a particular fashion. People feel in a heightened sense of entitlement to your energy, even to interject their opinions by way of comments and questions and projections and so on and so forth. And that's just in one space, a very popular space that many of us inhabit in some way, shape, or form, but just one, and a virtual one at that. So imagine in real life, in real time, in your waking existence, where this very pivotal change is taking place or is about to. It could be one to adapt to, for sure. So give yourself grace and time, and patience, to leverage this new identity in the way that will make you feel less of a novice and more of, you know, more experienced, maybe even an expert in some way, shape, or form. And to that point, don't feel particularly pressured to not only share all of the ins and outs, but to speak on anything in particular until you feel ready and safe to do so. I saw a clip. I don't even know if this is 100% relevant, but I literally just saw it today. I saw a clip that's going viral now about Jasmine Sullivan's new drastic weight loss, right? Now she looks good. I mean, she's to me always been a pretty girl. And of course, we know her star power is just out of this world. She looks amazing, you know, on site, but immediately it raised the question like, wow, like what a drastic change in such a short period of time since the last time at least I've seen her. And of course, you know, the Ozempic allegations are running amok, and I even heard somebody, well, I saw somebody in the comments say something about she had lost her mom, so it could have even been some bout of depression or sadness that contributed to the weight loss, which would, you know, would not be ideal, but it's possible. And then of course maybe it was just good old natural change of lifestyle and exercising and all of that good stuff. Who really knows? And as of now, there's no confirmation of what. But I'll say that just as me being guilty, just as a spectator, an observer of what I was seeing presented in front of me of this new and improved so-called Jasmine Sullivan, I was like, wow, that's pretty drastic. Like, you don't even need to do all that, sis. Like, you know, it's the type of weight loss where it's like, and I know this firsthand because I've done this in my life. I've been as small as a 4 Vera Wang, size 4 Vera Wang, freaking bridesmaid's dress, okay? And I'm very far from that at this point. So I know about the drastic weight loss and what people, you know, the response that it garners, you know, that it provokes. But as I said, as a spectator, it was just like, wow, like that's a lot to maintain. And to the point that I'm saying, like for me personally, it became something that I couldn't maintain because it wasn't natural to my body type and to my life, my lifestyle. And it became something that even now, at this point, I don't lust for. I never want to be that small again because of how much pressure it can be to stay down and stay at a weight that, first of all, you've never been before, probably in your damn life for me. And to and it invoking a way of life that you don't even really want to be committed to. Like you pretty much have to eat like a rabbit, which I don't choose to do so, at least not at this point in my life, in order to stay at a particular weight. You know, again, that's just not natural to you. So anyway, I'm looking at her and I'm like, damn, you know, I'm having all of these opinions. And of course, the reality of it is that I'm happy if she's happy, and I'm sure she loves the attention and the response that she's getting from one big girl to a formal big girl at this point is definitely satisfying to be acknowledged for such an accomplishment, especially if you worked hard or came through a particular trial and tribulation, even physically, to get to it. But then the thought of it is having that firsthand experience, like the maintenance, the pressure, the adverse comments, of course, the accusations of how you did it and whether you did it the natural way or the induced way, and this and that. And I even went through my own phase of that, just quickly glancing over the post. And I have no ill will towards Jasmine Sullivan. Like I said, I can relate, and I would want somebody to be in their most healthiest, having their most healthiest experience and expression of life, for sure. But these are the ebbs and flows, me having noble intentions, even still, these are the ebbs and flows of presenting yourself in a way that, you know, people just are not used to. And you can take that in every way, shape, and form that it can be considered. Again, spiritually, physically, mentally, psychologically, relationally, professionally, creatively. I even saw some comments saying, I hope the voice ain't changed, or I hope the voice isn't affected, or whatever. Because they say when big girls lose the weight, they don't have the same power. And she wasn't even that big in the most recent years, but the way she slimmed down at this point, this is the smallest I've ever seen her. Ever, ever, ever. She's skinny, literally straight up skinny. But there was a nudge about that also in the cards, about people, again, that ladder energy that will say that you cheated, you did witchcraft, you are into some demonic activities, or you didn't get it the righteous way, or your blessings or whatever it is that you're experiencing isn't righteous because there's some disagreement with how you achieved it, or this and that and that and this, and all of that to say that it really doesn't matter. When the wheel of fortune is out here and you're the fool, just dipping your toe into some new experience of life, going away, as it's in the scripture, it says that you've never been before. You kind of got to block out all of the noise and all of the commentary and all of the comments and accusations and implications and projections, and really just allow yourself to be fully immersed in the experience itself. And when you see fit and how you see fit, when you get that old, how'd you do it? What's your secret? When did this happen? What should I do? You'll know when it's right and when it's not to share, and exactly how much detail makes sense to do so. And I hope that that experience, although it may take some adaptation, I hope that experience eventually becomes as fulfilling as living it itself, because at the end of the day, we're not beholden to be anybody's personal resource. But it does make life a bit more fulfilling when you have something to offer for others to resource for themselves. Me personally, it makes me feel good when I can share with someone that I know is open to receive, and then I actually see that they're willing to apply, the information or the best bet, or the suggestion, whatever the case may be. That makes me feel the most useful and productive and even prosperous in this life, when I can see that the fruits of my labor bear fruit. I love that for me. I really, really do. At the same time, I've learned through trial and error that there are some instances where folks are just insistent on being bad apples, and it doesn't matter what you say to enhance their harvest, so to speak, or what you offer that might. They're still going to be dead set on either doing it their way, or or not at all, not doing anything that you've offered at all. And sometimes that's disheartening to see when you really have a heart to be of value to other people. But that's the point of detachment that you get to ultimately come to. Because what I've learned, in my shorthand experience of ascension and evolving and self improvement and growing and so on and so forth, is that people will sit at your feet to hear your strategy, to hear your testimony, to and swear by the fact that they really want to make a change in their life. But when they hear, the reality, the raw of the trial and error, perhaps the tribulation, dare I say the struggle, they ain't gonna want no parts of that. They don't want no parts of what it really takes to go all the way to assure your full immersion into your destined fate and fortune. Because that's the fate and the fortune, the outcome, the final result, that's all the pretty stuff. That's the remarkable stuff. That's the noteworthy energy that is attractive and alluring. But the how to, that's the part that even if someone were to take what you shared and transmute it for their own, for what matters to them or what is applicable to their lives, they still wouldn't want that version of that of a struggle that you've experienced or trial and tribulation that you've experienced for themselves, even if it meant that there was a guarantee of a result and a reward on the other side. Some people just are not willing to go through that way. Some people are not willing to take the fool's journey, even if they're intrigued by yours. So, and to that, again, I say stay detached, because you can still share. Maybe someone that's not willing to take a step today, they may be in a couple years, or in a couple decades. It might be their time. So it's still, and in integrity, it's still is productive to share, without projecting your prejudice on what you think someone may or may not be willing or able to do. But it's also worth it to be considerate that of how conservative you are in that sharing and that offering and suggesting, knowing that the reality of the situation is sometimes, our triumph story, the origins of it for sure, all the things on the way to the fame and the fortune and the favor, is really not as glamorous as folks would like. Is sometimes really quite tragic. And those are the parts that people would rather bypass. And if they can somehow, I don't know, like usurp a shortcut from you, they even at the expense of you, they would be much obliged to do so before they would actually venture out to have their own experience and get it by their own merit. So again, that's the latter. But the former is, if there's someone to be helped by God, you are certainly in a position, just by testimony alone, to be of service as you choose to be. All right. So again, discernment is key. And with that, I wish you Godspeed, God bliss. And as always, thanks for listening and watching. Until next time, peace.